Hello and welcome to the Foxy Bros podcast. I am your host, Niall Fox, aka Foxy, and this is the podcast where we talk about topics and see where the conversation takes us. And today I am joined by a man of many talents, I should say. A man with his finger in many different pies. He's the Irish Italian stallion, Ciaran Marcantonio. How are you?
I'm not too bad, man. The Irish Italian stallion, really? I would have gone from the south of Tala, but okay, fair enough.
Only because you had last name.
Yeah, I know. I get it a fair bit. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. How are you, man? And thank you for having me on.
I'm doing all right. Mental, as with everyone else during these very trying times. But
The old Steve Carino virus is getting to us all.
yeah, well, I don't mind if it said Corona, you prick. No. But look, as much as there is a lot bad about it, for people in like yourself and myself in the creative community, like people that are very creative, it's forced us to be like really forced us to be more creative in terms of what we do. So like if we're an artist, it's forced us to try new things, or if for me I make pixel art, it's forced me to do more original stuff as opposed to looking at a template online and doing it. But I
Yeah.
imagine for other people, this will also probably inspire, say, like yourself as a writer, probably inspire you to come up with a
Yeah.
story somewhere down the line, following your
I'm
experiences
hope
during this.
I'm hoping. Um naturally it's been for those who don't know me, I'll give you a quick rundown. I make comics. I'm a comic book writer and editor. Primarily that's for Black Sheep Comics, in association with the Irish Writers Centre. So I write and teach how to make comics. I also attend conventions. I also cosplay. And I'm a huge wrestling and metal fan as well. So I've a lot of different things that I get involved with. But thanks to the wonderful coronavirus, we have basically seen a stop to pretty much everything in my world. Comics was essentially declared closed the day that Diamond Distribution decided that they weren't sending out comics to any new comics weren't going out stores for a roughly 3 month period. And that started back in early March. So there's been no new comics on the shelves. There's been no stores open. And as such, there's been no distribution. And mainly, a lot of the major comic book distributors and comic book makers like Marvel and DC have shut down on making comics. So us down here in the indie section have been kind of gathering steam with a few different things. I have a few different projects on the back burner right now, but the way things have changed for me has mainly been, instead of like going in to say the Irish Writer Centre to teach a class, I've been doing a lot of individual tutorials, one-to-one, online over Zoom. Funny you should mention new ways of doing things as well, because the one thing I've definitely found a new way of doing things is I'm actually teaching people how to use lightsabers, like performance lightsabers. So that's been interesting, because what I'm doing is I'm having to record videos on my balcony and send them to my students to emulate, record a video and send it back to me, which I then judge and send back to them with a few notes. That's been really interesting, because I had only just started the teaching end of lightsaber performance maybe January this year. And I picked up two students, both from the burlesque and performance world, that wanted to learn how to use them. And we were doing fairly well with, meetups every week or every 2 weeks to practice. And now it's completely gone to entirely online, because there's no other way to do it. So that's been interesting and strange and weird, and having to break down a lot of my own personal, I don't want to put myself on camera doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to put yourself out there, don't it? As opposed to just be behind the scenes.
It forces you to come out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
As a comic book writer and editor, I am very comfortable sitting and living and working at home. That I can do. That's something a skill I've picked up over time. That's fairly okay. But when it comes to things like teaching performance, you normally have to be in a room with the person. And for those things that you can't be in a room with the person, you have to find ways around now. So yeah, so things like meeting up over Zoom or sending each other ridiculous videos via Facebook Messenger that, by God, if they ever come out, I will kill those students. Yeah, that kind of stuff, breaking down your own insecurities around what you trust to put online is one thing I've had to do, pull the curtain back, if you will, from that phrase that we love, from that world that we love. And
that world that people think is very fake, don't know. So
don't get me started, Foxy. Don't get me started. Don't get me started, man.
It's not fake, it's predetermined. There you go.
Yes, I know. We'll get heat on the podcast already for this. We'll get Jim Corney online. We'll get all those guys get all riled up.
I love Cornette, but
Foxy's exposing the business.
Don't you know I've been doing that for years?
Mm-hmm. Exposing the business is key, man. In this day and age, you see, that's what all right, we're on to this conversation already. I think exposing the business is key in this day and age because the business is exposed.
Oh,
so the only way to deal with it is to lean into it.
Yeah, why not?
And like, top of your head, top of my head, guy I think has completely and totally leaned into it and gotten a following and made it work for him, and I'm absolutely not surprised all the old school dinosaurs hate him. Orange Cassidy.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without
Orange
a doubt.
Fucking Cassidy. Have you been watching much of the Graps over the break?
No,
over the break.
Not much. Not over the break, yeah, the off season, like the first ever off season. No, I haven't really gotten to see much. I watched their attempt at WrestleMania, and
that was interesting.
Yes, not completely a bad thing, to be honest. Like doing it 2 days, I was more than happy to have 2 days that were just 3 hours, as opposed to one show that was 7 hours. The
exhaustion factor.
Yeah,
like the exhaustion factor kicks in as a watcher. I mean, if we're in the world where Wrestle Kingdom can be over 2 nights comfortably, and WrestleMania can be over 2 nights comfortably, then yeah, they should do it. They should absolutely do it. I think they did it for the wrong reasons.
Yes,
but they did it, and parts of it worked, and parts of it didn't. What
I have noticed, and what I have seen, is the fact that with this current global situation, then it has forced big companies like a WWE or an AEW to rethink how they do things in terms of presentation and who is actually going to be on the show as well.
If I were comparing the two, I think. Let me think about this now. I think it's very strange that in a post Matt Hardy in WWE world, that the most successful WWE matches that have come out during that period are almost Matt Hardy directed in the way that they presented themselves. The Boneyard match for me was one of the highlights of WrestleMania. People think it went on too long, but the Randy Orton and Edge match was also quite good, I found.
It was good, but unnecessarily, people were really hammering it for a reference that they probably didn't even intend to make, in terms of
yes, the unconscious Benoit reference.
Call
a spade. Yeah,
I seen it, instantly I copped it, but I mean, I didn't think they're trying to recreate this. Then it's no, just happens to be a situation in the match. So
yeah, I think that was an unintentional thing that viewers read into, and as as wrestling fans, people are gonna read into that, especially with Benoit being on people's minds again following the recent Dark Side of the
Dark
Ring
Side of the
thing.
Moon.
Um,
I've
yeah, that's
actually
something I've
really
been
liked the show.
consuming quite a lot of.
I
Yeah,
actually really like the show.
I've liked Dark Side of the Ring.
It's very, it's interesting to see a, don't know, obviously like we want to know about the darker side of wrestling, but like at the same time it's like, all right, here's a take that's not WWE, a take on a situation that isn't from WWE, don't know, that we
Yeah,
probably wanted to know.
that's what I've enjoyed about it. Like, all right, if you want to talk about Dark Side of the Ring, the highlight episodes for me so far have been the Bruiser Brody episode. That was really good. The Jimmy Snuka episode brought up some questions that around maybe whether Vince should be held accountable for some of his actions during that time. But
But also,
the New Jack episode left me thinking he was a psychopath, and fair play to Kazakh Lennon for destroying him on Twitter recently. Hashtag Session Not Martini, kicking ass.
tell me you've seen like her recent interaction with someone who is now banned from Twitter for a little while. Tell me you've seen.
For being such a, shall we say, bad guy.
Yeah,
That
there
one.
you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I remember I seen the tweet, loved it. Like, because I knew full well that's a joke. That is a full on joke.
Yeah.
Well, obviously someone higher up was just like, no, you need to take that down. You need to take that down. Why? It's funny.
Yeah.
You obviously don't get the joke.
Well, no, he did. We did, but you see, let's name a name. Mr. Scott Hall should know better when he's on Twitter. And Mr. Scott Hall should definitely know better when he's on Twitter, considering his previous actions in this country. And Mr. Scott Hall should maybe be a little bit, maybe a little bit too sweet to people instead of being a bit of a bad guy.
Very good way of tiptoeing around the situation.
Yeah. Don't get drunk and get on your phone, Scott. And definitely don't get on your phone talking about mental health when you're drunk. Scott's gonna Scott Hall.
Some of the stuff is like, obviously, like, yes. So I'm still I'm drawing a blank, and you could probably help me on this because like we've known each other for a fair few years. Just we didn't we probably interacted at different points over the years, but like we didn't actually introduce ourselves to each other until what, 3-4 years ago.
I'm gonna say Scrapper. It was Scrapper Mania. I can't remember if it was Scrapper Mania 3 or 4. No, it was before that. I think it might have been Scrapper Mania. It was one Jerry introduced me to. I remember it being Jerry who introduced me to you. And that was one of those when he was doing the, because I know Jerry through the Star Wars cosplay world. We cosplayed together in the Emerald Garrison, and he was the one who was constantly at, you should go to OTT, man. You should go to OTT. You love it. And I'm like, all right, man. I'll when I get the chance, I will. And sure enough, I did, and I did. Love it to bits. And Jerry was one of the first ones to kind of take me around and introduce me to people and go, this is such and such, and this is such and such, and introduce me to you, introduce me to Joe. And yeah, so thanks, Jerry. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was one of the Scrapper Manias. I'd have to go back and find it.
Because like,
I keep photos of everything.
Because with that, I was just like, I know I've seen you around, like at different things, whether it be conventions or otherwise. We've crossed paths, but never full on like introduced ourselves to each other. So I was just like, when the fuck have we met? Because we've known each other so long.
Bunch of times. I've seen you at conventions selling your pixel art and stuff. I usually where I'm throwing comics at people. we were finally supposed to be at a convention together, but thanks to COVID, that's not happening.
I know.
Shout out to Celticon. Shout out to Kingdom Comics Fest as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's I don't know, man. Our worlds cross over. You know, there's a lot of crossover in the wrestling and comics worlds, as far as I can.
It lends itself so well to it.
It is, and it's it's far more so in the States than it is here. I've noticed, because like I would go to, say, New York Comic Con, and I'd roll up to New York Comic Con, and there's a particular indie comic called Headlock Comics that I enjoy, and I've met the guy Mike behind them a few times, and every time at New York Comic Con, he would have top shelf wrestlers at his table to do signings during the show, and he would pimp his comic. I'll drop some names, the likes of which Sting, DP, Booker T, Lita, Trish Stratus, Christian, Hurricane. I'm trying to think of all of the different ones I've met because of him, because he's great. He just sets them up at a table. It's a very, very, very fun and simple interaction. You can go up, you can talk to them for a few minutes, get a photo with them, and then pick up some of his comics. And that, for me, was the first time I ever saw the two worlds of comics and wrestling bang on together as one world. And I was like, this is cool. Can there be more of this? I've since discovered that there's actually, a pretty good groundswell of indie wrestling comics out there. There's the Kayfabe anthology. There's multiple different comics around. A lot of the older guys, believe it or not, there's a long-running series about the Killer Bees. There's Ivan Koloff has his own series of comics. Jim Cornette has his own series of comics. And a lot of them are, Tales from the Territories kind of comics and that kind of thing. And of course, WWE got into the game with Boom Comics a few years ago, and they've been doing really, really good stuff too. So I've always found that there is a crossover. And when I come back to Ireland and I go to wrestling shows and I see some of the characters that we have in Ireland as performers, I go, some of these guys are just waiting to be made into comics, or waiting to have comics about them. And
they just tend to lend themselves to it. Like, you just want to see more of that particular character.
Yeah, and that would lead to, that's kind of what led to me and you kind of hooking up over the years and going, there's something there that we need to tap into. That we'll get there eventually, but there's just so much crossover between the worlds that I find it's becoming almost one and the same. Like, a question for you, and I don't know if you have an answer for this. You heard anything about this WrestleCon that's been trying to get going here in Ireland?
Yes, I've heard about this. I'd seen a couple of posts on Facebook and social media, and I was just like, okay, so someone's trying to do it, but for the life of me, couldn't figure out who the hell was running it. So I thought, I'll chance my arm. I shoot them a message like, look, I'm interested in this. I'd like to know more information. Send.
Yeah.
Never got any word back though. So it's just like, okay, so it's probably a bit of bull crap, but because everything died down fairly quickly after that as well.
Well, there was also COVID, so any chance of anything happening in the foreseeable is unlikely. Which is also where both kind of worlds are at now for live performance, at least in this country. I mean, there won't be any comic conventions or any wrestling shows here for a while.
If we are fortunate enough, the first show could happen in August.
August.
If we are lucky.
If we're lucky. If the 5-phase thing works out. I suppose the same could be said for Dublin Comic Con as well. So then they had a show scheduled for August, but it was for early August, so we'll see.
It's a very tricky situation because no one knows how it's going to be, and depending on how people uh, function throughout this 5 phase prospect. It that could determine whether we're getting out early or staying in longer.
Yeah.
But enough doom and gloom. So yeah, no, enough doom and gloom. Let's talk about good stuff that we like. So obviously, like you talk about
Okay, cool.
about the about the fact that you're teaching people how to use a lightsaber. Now, I take it from that you're a gigantic Star Wars fan, and the fact that you cosplay it.
Massive. Yeah.
But all right, here's probably a couple questions that like big Star Wars fans would either debate over or like. So, uh, first question: what do you think of the prequel trilogy?
Um, I quite enjoy them. It's taken a long time for me to get to a place where I enjoy them, but it's one of those things where I kind of take on board now that there's a Star Wars for several generations. Much like Star Wars itself is generational in its storytelling. You know, there are kids who were kids in the 70s and 80s when the originals came out, and they absolutely diehard love those movies. And there are kids who were kids in the 90s who really, really grew up with a different generation of Star Wars. And it's taken 10, 20 years for us to realize that that generation really does love those films. And I think the same thing is happening now with the current generation of movies, in that, you know, fans of the previous generations, be it the originals or the prequels, are seeing the new movies and going, well, they're not our movies. But the thing they're not getting out of that is that, yeah, they're not your movies. They're made for the next generation and the next generation. So there's always a generation of kids coming up watching Star Wars. And we won't see the true effect of the current trilogy, say, until maybe 10, 20 years' time when those kids become, you know,
Adults.
adults that love that particular trilogy or whatever. So yeah, I love the prequels, man. I'll say my honest reason for initially loving them, and I've gotten a lot of shit for this, but it's true. They've the best lightsaber fights, hands down.
Oh, without a doubt.
Hands fucking down, the
I
best
love the
lightsaber
fact that,
fights.
like, with this, it was explained that this is back when they were in their prime. They're not like
Yeah.
that's what you're seeing this very energetic kind of like lightsaber duels,
Mm.
as opposed to the original trilogy where it was much slower and it was obviously because they were a lot older. But like
Yeah.
still, just like wow, this is a brand new energy that you're getting, and the presentation of those big lightsaber duels in the prequels were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. Like the prequel era for me, and in the prequel era, I include the likes of Clone Wars, because Clone Wars is of that era. And I honestly think some of the best lightsaber fights in the series have happened in Clone Wars. There was a recent lightsaber fight between Darth Maul and Ahsoka Tano that, to me, honestly, is probably the best lightsaber fight ever put on the screen. And you know, it's gotten to the stage now where, you know, they're mocapping people like Ray Park to perform for Darth Maul, which for me gives it a real level of authenticity and stuff like
Yeah,
that, because those early movies were really, those early prequels, um especially Phantom Menace, was entirely, the fight style was almost entirely developed by the likes of Ray Park. And to see him come back into it now, God knows how many years later, because of the advent of mocap technology, is really fucking cool for somebody who's a fucking giant lightsaber nerd and a giant lightsaber performance nerd. So yeah, for me, the prequels hold a lot of value. They make their mistakes, you know. That there's for every fucking great decision they made, there's always going to be the Jar Jar Binks argument, you
or
know. But
I don't like sand.
yeah, like I saw I saw an entire group of nerds descend into chaos online one day over the fact that there was a different guy in the Chewbacca suit, and I was just like, lads, having met original Chewbacca,
Yeah.
he would be fucking cool with it. Like, you know,
He
like
was cool with it. He
yeah,
realized, like, look, I'm getting older and I can barely walk.
yeah,
So before his unfortunate passing, so like I need to fucking like pass on to someone else.
yeah. So like my Star Wars nerd runs deep, and I I'm almost at the point where I don't get involved in Star Wars arguments online anymore because I'm a grown up and I don't need to get involved in every argument online if I don't agree with something.
I need to be
But
responsible enough. I shouldn't be
yeah,
falling into this trap.
yeah. Look, we're all Star Wars fans, one way or another. But there's in in every single fandom, no matter what kind of fandom it is, there are always going to be people who don't enjoy something about the fandom, and if you enjoy that thing about the fandom, then you're not a proper fan, and all of that bullshit,
No,
absolute bullshit.
not fair.
Everybody's I'm free to like whatever kind of wrestling I like. You're free to like whatever kind of wrestling you like. I'm free to like whatever kind of Star Wars I like, and you're free to like whatever kind of Star Wars you like. That's kind of my attitude with things. But I do have fun sometimes going, God, I'd love to set fire to this thread by just dropping something ridiculous in there. Like the most recent Star Wars argument I seen was over the speculation of Tamaru Morrison coming back to the Mandalorian for season 2, in which he would play Boba Fett. Now, watched online as this announcement came out, waited, and sure enough, I thought to myself, this is going to get into an argument real fast about whether he should be Boba Fett or whether he should be Rex or whether he should even be allowed be any of them because Jeremy Bulloch is Boba Fett and blah, blah, blah. In my head, I go, Jeremy Bulloch is too old for the role at this point. He's retired as an actor entirely. He would not come back to play Boba Fett. So that's going to piss off the original trilogy fans because if you're bringing back Boba Fett and it's not him, it's going to piss off those guys. It's going to no matter what way it falls, it's going to piss off some part of the fandom. But for me, I was just like, you know what? If he comes back and he plays an age appropriate to what he was, like if you go back 20 years, that makes sense. That if you were to cast him in that timeline now, and he was a clone of Jango Fett, then he would look like that at this point in his life. I actually think it's a brilliant piece of continuity casting.
Definitely. Because like even
But
if you
sure
were
enough,
to go that route, or if you're gonna do it
yeah,
as he's one of the clones, the like Rex, as you said,
yeah,
that'd be brilliant as well. Because it's like, oh, that explains why he's in there. Then he could be
yeah.
passing off as such and such, to get closer. You never know.
Yeah, so far we know in that timeline that there are 3 clones at least out there. There's Gregor, Wolf, and Rex, and he could play any of those, or as they straight up, if he comes back as Boba Fett, I am actually fucking down with that. I would like to see the old school Mandalorian versus the new school Mandalorian. See what that looks like.
Mm.
Maybe they raise a bounty, looking for the Mandalorian and the kid, and guess who comes out of retirement to take up the bounty?
The original, yeah. You never know. Like there's
That's
there's potential for so many different stories that could branch off from it, from that long.
oh yeah.
For me personally, like I'm a big Qui-Gon Mark. I really am.
Qui-Gon Jinn, Mark, man,
Oh,
have you
yeah.
seen my outfit? Like
Yes, I
my
have.
outfit's Qui-Gon Jinn, for God's sakes.
I mean, like it's just he. Even though like we find it like when you're a kid, because that was the I grew up when the prequel trilogy was starting.
Mm.
Now I'd already seen the original trilogy and loved it, so that's what made me
Mm.
want to go to these new Star Wars films at the time. But like
Mm-hmm.
Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor just brought a real like it made it cool to be
Yeah,
like I want to be a
yeah,
Jedi, because this, like,
yeah.
and Liam
I
Neeson
mean,
like
I
Qui-Gon
could,
just was less slick, older Jedi that just he didn't fully like commit to being a full on Jedi or following the council. He if he thought it was right, he did it. as opposed to blindly following.
I get you. The way I kind of put it is when I think about Qui-Gon is that he was the last true Jedi before the militarization of the Jedi.
Mm.
Like the way did they do it in the Clone War starts and essentially the Jedi become generals. And I think back to what would Qui-Gon have thought of that if he'd have lived to see it. And I think that would have been a point where he walked away from the Jedi Council if he was still alive during that time. I think he would have left. But I see Qui-Gon as kind of like this last remnant of what the true Jedi were, as in peacekeepers that do the right thing. And yeah, I see him as I actually liken the character of Qui-Gon to what Ahsoka has kind of become.
Yeah,
In that,
I've noticed that they've transitioned her to be like this current version of Qui Gon, almost like Qui Gon
yeah,
has been reincarnated in Ahsoka.
yeah, in some ways, I definitely agree with that because she, she took the decision to walk away from the Jedi Council, and we now know, thanks to the release of season 7, that the offer was made for her to rejoin the Council and rejoin the Jedi Order, and she turned it down because she still believed what she was preaching, in that the Jedi should not be generals, the Jedi should be peacekeepers, not the people out on the front lines.
Mm.
And yeah, I definitely see that. That's probably why I relate to the character of Ahsoka the same way I kind of relate to the character of Qui-Gon, other than complete Irish biased here, like total Irish bias, not even afraid to show it. Like when Liam Neeson was announced as a Jedi when I was 16, 17, I was like, that's fucking cool. We have an Irishman. Is he gonna have a green lightsaber? Of course he bloody is. Yes. So
Borderline,
yeah,
like, borderline racist, like in that sense. It's like you give the Irishman the green lightsaber, really?
yeah. Well, this is at the time. You have to remember the Black Power Ranger was still black and the Yellow Power Ranger was still Asian.
I
It
know.
was the 90s. It was a dark time.
It's full of racism. Full of racism. I hear you're a racist, father. Should we all be racist now?
Uh,
Uh,
slight shout out to the Father Ted Feck posting group on Facebook, because by God, they've been keeping me alive during this thing.
do you know what's saying?
I
Like as you bring that up, like with Father Ted and all that, the one saying that has become relevant again, uh,
yeah,
especially online, is still Bishop Brennan. And it's like, you'll address me by my proper title, you little bollocks.
yeah.
Like I've seen that so much over the last few weeks online. It's crazy. Like, damn. Now I'm starting to say, crap.
if
What's a good
anybody
saying?
wants if anybody wants a real laugh, the group itself descended into internal chaos when one of the admins was called a naughty word, and it just descended into I'm not going to repeat the naughty word. It's so naughty. Even though you've given me permission to say fuck or bugger on this podcast, I am not going to repeat the naughty word. But an admin was called the naughty word, and they ended up taking, the episode where Father Ted gets up and gives all of the judges socks. Um, so somebody took that entire thing and turned it into this guy versus the admins, and it is one of the most glorious pieces of feck posting art I have ever seen on the internet, and everyone should go to the Father Ted feck posting group and have a look at it.
I, as you
Oh.
say that, I'm actually typing it right now because I actually want to see this. The Father Ted fact posting. There we go. Let's see.
It's a deep vein, Foxy. It's a deep vein of comedy. It's the kind of comedy group that only Ireland will understand.
Uh, yeah, like I find it strange that like the creator that I has had a good streak of, even though he's not the best person ever, But he's had a very good streak of shows
Oh, he's,
that are
I,
very like hit the mark basically.
they hit the mark for their time, but what we're discovering over time is
Yes.
that, let's like call it for what it is. Graham Lennon's a fairly transphobic person.
Oh yeah.
He's a bit of a turf. I say a bit of a turf. That's using the term mildly. That's like saying Gemma O'Doherty is a bit of a racist. But you know, not one of the greatest humans in the world. But yes, he did some good shows back in the day. I I I get into that weird place where I start thinking about art versus artist, you know, and I go, I can sometimes separate art from artist, but sometimes I can't. It's just dependent on the person, really.
Hmm.
And like I don't know, Graham, just just reread your own tweets, man. Just reread them every now and again and go, was that a good idea?
Or get someone
Oh,
else to actually look at it as like, this okay? It's like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
delete that.
Yeah. Do you notice Seth Rollins' Twitter game has gotten much better since he started running them by Becky Lynch? Let's just be honest. That was probably a good move for his professional and personal life.
It will save him some credibility,
Yeah.
like especially online. But
Yeah.
all right, like with that, like said, did you watch the announcement? Like Becky's
Of the
announcement?
pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
Um, it was an interesting one, and here's for why. Um, it gave her a proper send off.
Mm.
It I think they should have warned Asuka because it was quite. There was a moment or two of breaking kayfabe in there. Um,
I think that was actually the best thing for it because
yeah,
it made it so genuine,
yeah. It
as
was.
opposed to like she found out in the back, and she's going to try and recreate that.
Yeah, no, no, fair enough. That's a solid point too. It was one of those ones where you go, I go, all right, I'm gonna quote Corny a little bit on this one, and he made a very valid point. Anybody who is in a relationship and is a top performer and wants to have kids can do so in this day and age in a planned fashion. Now, I'm not judging Becky Lynch or Seth Rollins for their choices, not at all. Um, Becky is on top of her game right now, and if let's be honest here, some people choose to either take a break after these kind of things or choose sometimes never to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know which way Becky goes, but whatever way she goes, I personally, as a fan, will support her. If we never see Becky Lynch, the wrestler, again, um, and she just wants to go off and be the ma with her wooden spoon, more power to her, you know? Um, Seth Rollins is going to learn to fear the most deadly weapon in Irish culture, and that is the wooden spoon of an Irish mammy.
Yeah.
Um, but, I say fair play to them. If they want to go and have kids, fair play to them. It's going to be hard for two people in a top position in a company. It's going to be hard for any two people in a top position in a company to have a relationship, let alone a marriage, and let alone a marriage with kids, when both of them are in top front-facing, camera-facing positions within that company.
Mm.
And those are the complications they will have to get around as a couple, and those complications I don't envy them trying to deal with. But personally, more power to them. Absolutely happy for them. Really wish Seth would ditch the goofy goddamn Monday Night Messiah gimmick for 5 minutes to actually show that he's a human being and he cares.
Like, to be honest, like
Yeah.
I thought the opposite. I thought that was actually brilliant. That like he
Yeah.
kept character and just looked and we're addressing it, but I'm still gonna like keep the character on TV, and try to
Yeah.
kill Rey Mysterio. for the second time in a couple
later that night. Yeah,
of so it's like
yeah.
so I thought
Um,
fantastic like character work for Seth, like as well as addressing that the elephant in the room of him being with Becky. But, but yeah, I found the whole like the whole thing like very genuine. And I loved Asuka's reaction to the whole thing because it did, in my mind, like lend a proper. It made it a very genuine moment as opposed to something that's partly staged and uh, not not come across in what the moment was. But,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's that's the line that I personally like to see danced when I watch wrestling. You know, I like to have my emotions pulled out by wrestling because wrestling has a thing about where you inherently care about the people in the ring, one way or another. If you're a fan, you care about them. You either love to hate them or you love to love them, one or the other. If they're doing their job well, they can make you do both. Um, but to see a genuine moment like that, it's weird because we only ever see them mostly in bad circumstances.
yeah, like
We
someone getting
mostly only
injured
ever see
or
them that emotion come out. Someone getting injured or something tragic happening, usually brings that out, that emotional side out. So, do you know what? To see something like that come about in this time during all of this crap, yeah, it's nice. It's
yeah,
good. It's happy. It's shown that life, no matter what, no matter what we think is happening right now in the world, life is going to go on, and the good things are still going to happen. And
exactly.
for that, I felt that when I was watching it. It was one of those pick me up moments. Although nothing is more heart lifting in WWE than the story of Otis and Mandy. Nothing.
But like,
Give me Otis and Mandy all day long.
that's
Oh
because you want to see
yeah.
Mandy all day long.
No, it's because I want to hear Otis say, "Oh yeah," all day long.
Like, and that like
uh,
apart from like the Seth and Becky, like yeah, the Otis and Mandy is actually like the biggest like ongoing storyline that people have been invested in a
yeah,
long time.
yeah. Like if he decides to go for the tag team titles with Money in the Bank, I am going to care about those tag team titles again for the first time in God knows how long.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, Otis is doing his job well. I fear for Tucker though. I fear that Tucker is being left behind.
Yes, yes, which is a shame considering that like both of them together work so well. So it'd be a shame that someone loses out.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
I
You
I
need,
know we always have that way tag team. Then one is gonna be the breakout star, but then it'd be nice if both of them actually like are getting the fair rub kind of thing. Let him try
I
and
wish I wish that was the case, but we all know what's happening right now. What's happening right now is Vince is real entertained by the Otis and Mandy thing, and Tucker is becoming the side note. Tucker is becoming the,
the third
dare
wheel.
I say it, the Marty Jannetty of the situation. And yeah, I don't know. I see it either got. It's very easy to set this up for a Tucker getting upset because Otis is getting all the attention. Do you know what I mean? It's too
Yeah.
easy. It's too easy for Vince to see that right now and not go for it. God damn you, Vince. This is why we can't have nice things, Vince. Also, I have to ask, did you see that god awful?
God awful what? I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. There you go. So can I hear the? Did I see
Ooh.
the god awful what?
Okay, pause it. Pause it.
So like you're asking me, did I see a god awful what? before he.
The god awful SmackDown 25th anniversary Triple H thing.
No, I didn't.
You didn't see it? Go back and watch it. Man, Vince looks tired. Like, Vince looks real tired. Not in a good way. I'm just like, I watched it and I thought, this is him actually beginning to break down. He's actually beginning to lose it.
Well, he has lost like 300 million. So
Yeah. And
it's
he's lost a lot of respect from people too.
like again with the mass, like okay, so like as we transition with the like with the massive like exodus of releases that they've done over the last like month or so. Now
Yeah.
that opens up hopefully when wrestling like opens back up again. That opens its doors. That means that there's an opportunity for so many like either potential dream matches or people going in an entirely new direction and possibly making it to different companies and actually being used properly. But
Yeah.
with the amount of
Yeah.
people that's there, who do you see going where?
Okay. Um, Gallows and Anderson, I reckon we'll do another New Japan run.
I believe
Possibly followed by a run in AEW. But New Japan is their home.
Yeah.
And getting two original members of the Bullet Club back in the Bullet Club right now would be very good for New Japan.
Yeah.
It would be very good for them where they're hot. And I think it would allow them to return to a position of prominence. It can only build their star power for negotiations further down the line if they want to go to another company in the States, which I'm sure they will. They've strong ties to AEW. But I genuinely believe as Bullet Club OGs, I think they're going to go back, judging by everything they've been posting since they left.
Yeah. Which makes
and the return
to their talking shop, because they've
talking shop's back.
Like, he's gonna like we're gonna talk about everything. Come this date at midnight, we are gonna start talking and let you know everything. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say about that.
Yeah, that will be one of the ones I will definitely be like, right, what's going on? I like of all the releases, it's very strange to have two guys who were literally in the Boneyard match at WrestleMania and then released the following week. They were on the main event slot of the first night of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And now they're gone. That does not make sense.
And AJ has come on record and said that like he feels guilty for that.
Yeah, I know.
Which he shouldn't, because like it wasn't his decision. It was the company's decision themselves to like let them go. So
it was, but here's the thing, when you're that close with people in real life, you feel a personal and professional connection to them, and a personal and professional responsibility. And while AJ probably wasn't included in any of that decision making, as evidenced by the fact that he's, still wearing OC gear, even at Money in the Bank, that tells me that, AJ loves his boys and is close with his boys. And of course he's going to feel a personal guilt. He shouldn't, you're right. But definitely, like, boiling this down, I think this is going to be really good for Gallows and Anderson.
Yeah.
And I think it will reignite the Bullet Club. Or it could reignite the Bullet Club, because I'm not saying the Bullet Club has floundered under the current Jay White and Tama Tonga configuration, but they're not as hot as they were when they had the Elite in their camp, and they're not as hot as they were when they had the original members in their camp. So it can be that's a move that I see as logical and straightforward. Zack Ryder, AEW all the way. Bring that internet title of his, make it a thing.
Yeah, you could.
That's That's where I think that's going to go. His friendship with Cody, all of that.
I think it would be, but I don't think Ryder is one of those where I'm just going to jump over straight away because my friend is there. I think it's a case of like, he could walk away from wrestling. He's made his money, but he could do something else entirely.
Mm.
Like he could find
He
that. Like,
could.
for all we know, like yeah, he was probably sitting in the back, but for all we know, he could have been like becoming like a producer or a backstage hand that like was actually really utilized. Just we never seen it on screen though.
Yeah, that's true. I just see him as like given like I've been following his progression since. You know, he's one of those guys that's filed a few copyrights, and those copyrights include the Internet Champion. Those copyrights include a new design for the Internet Champion. So that tells me he's doing something in that direction, whether it be starting up his YouTube page in a way where he starts touting that again and going to different territories. Maybe he gets one of those sweet contracts that allows him to wrestle in multiple companies. Or maybe he just stays a lone gun for a while. Who knows? But this is the fun thing about speculating about these guys. Like even up till yesterday, we're getting new releases. Drew Gulak, under contract of his release, he could show up on Dynamite this Wednesday because of the contract. The way he was released, he doesn't have to sit out a 90-day, and he's in Florida.
Which
that would be
crazy.
You know,
it's crazy that they'll let someone work up there. Like if their contract ended, like was to set to expire at the start of April, and they're not renewing. Why would you keep them on TV for that last month? Like the day before or the day of they finish their contract. It's like, no, don't do that. If you know they're not resigning, don't put them in a prominent position all of a sudden just to try and hope that they'll resign.
Well, what we're hearing on the Drew Gulak situation was that he was requesting more money, and as he was requesting more money, they pulled the current offer, which allowed his contract to expire, basically because he didn't want to be rehired at the same rate of pay. Now, everybody's entitled to do that at that stage. So WWE, when he was saying no, I'm not signing this unless I get a raise, they just pulled the contract, which leaves him in the position of having a now expired contract and letting him wrestle right up, as you say, right up until Friday Night SmackDown was his last match against Daniel Bryan, and it was a great match. Don't know about. Like, I'm just crossing my mind while I'm thinking of this. Sorry to cut across. You didn't mean to. But I'm trying to compare this a little bit to the Drake Maverick situation, where I'm not sure if the Drake Maverick situation is a work. But to kind of turn him into an underdog who saves his own job. And I don't know if that is the situation and it is a work, if I'm okay with the morality of doing that during this kind of time.
Yeah.
Like that's some shady shit. But yeah, let's see. Out of everybody else, Heath Slater, by God, I hope he just runs wild on the indies. Goes to every single indie he possibly can and enjoys the shit out of himself for a while. Who else? Who else?
With Heath Slater is the fact that like everyone was joking about it, and even with his recent appearance on the Bump, where he did a surprise appearance for Drew to win the title, they made reference to the fact that like 2 out of the 3 members have gone off. Like they weren't always in WWE. They went off and reinvented themselves and came back, and now they're champions. They made reference to the fact that like only one left. It was almost like they were foreshadowing what was going to happen. So it's like, all right, maybe if we get people are behind this story now, like maybe if we got rid of him now, he'll have some momentum, he do well, and we'll get him back later on. So
that could be the situation. That could be what they're thinking. And if that's the case, I hope it works out for Heath. Like, bottom line, everybody who was released on Black Wednesday, and everybody who's been released since. I really hope that they do well in whatever they decide to do. There are other places out there. With the Revival, I think it's pretty clear where they're going, at least first.
I know they at least want to be able to work Japan. They want a more open contract where they can go to these other companies and work.
Yeah, but I mean, they've a self-made story there in the last few years with the Young Bucks and the whole FTR thing, and I think that makes a whole lot of sense. I'd love to see them do a run on NWA Power with Jim Cornette as manager. I'd love to. That's just my own personal dream booking. I think they'd be great there. Hell, I think they'd work even in Impact, and I don't think Impact's getting enough credit for what it's doing these days, but it's still there and it's still working. There are other companies. I mean, Ring of Honor is still going. Impact is still going. NWA Power is going. There are places for these guys to work.
I find it to be the handiest. It's the best time now, as opposed to 5 or 6 years ago, where now there is places to go. It's not just WWE.
Yeah.
Actually, I could probably work for Ring of Honor, or I could work for New Japan, or I could work for NWA Power. It's so different to what it was a few years ago, and it allows more opportunity for either indie stars or past WWE stars to actually maybe reinvent themselves and get more of a following.
Yeah, and that's ultimately, I think that WWE were hoarding talent deliberately to keep them away from other companies. And they've released these guys at such a time now where there is time to negotiate with other companies before making a proper return, and I will say, people have done really well with going to AEW. John Moxley, king among them, has done really well at AEW. Sean Spears has created his own thing from what he was in WWE. Mr. Brody Lee is hilarious. I know he's trying to play it completely straight, but I find the gimmick massively hilarious. And yeah, I just think it's a blessing in disguise what's happened. I think that while it was doom and gloom and all of that, it has released a large amount of really talented people back out into the talent pool for other companies to really get some guys that could do some really good work.
Yeah.
Potential
dream matches or real showcase matches that could lead to bigger things.
Yeah. Also, just personal note, because I fucking love him. Sting to AEW, please. Sting, just go in a consultant role, whatever it is. Just do it, man.
That's a big one as well. That they kind of just let slip through their fingers. Sting, if I was WWE, I would have been no, look, all right, he wants this. Right, if he can do this, then we'll consider it. Please sign. Just stay with us. I would have done everything in my power if I was with WWE to keep him.
Yeah, I would have too.
Yeah, but all the talent that was released and the more talent that we're finding out about, I imagine the majority of them are going to do extremely well, depending on where they go to. I just hope that it's not a killer for the current indie scene. In terms of all right, there's an influx of established people coming in and potentially stopping smaller indie guys from getting a rise, rising up in the ranks, basically. So I just hope
that would be haven't thought about it from that perspective. Yeah. Um, there are so many people that are rising right now in the indie scene.
Mm.
Uh, Big respect personally for David Starr. I think he's doing really, really good stuff. Um, and for me, I start picking. All right, question for you: dream matches between top indie guys right now and guys that have just been released.
Oh, that's a tough one because
All
they're
right,
very
dream match, and we're totally fantasy booking this and have absolutely no influence on it whatsoever. If you could pick one of them to face off at, say, a Scrapper Mania, who would it be?
uh, if we could, uh, it's kind of no brainer to get in the likes of the Revolt, like for big tag team title.
Man,
It's just a no brainer.
my head went right there. I was like Kings of the North versus the Revolt. Yes, please.
Not necessarily against Kings of the North. It could be more than hype
Yeah.
as well. So like
More than hype could do it, yeah.
because I think the hype boys would actually be a better suit for the revival where the revolt where these are established guys and they could be very good at what they do against young up and coming talent in like one of the best tag teams in Europe at the moment. How would you not want to see that? So whereas
Yeah, I absolutely.
in terms of singles competition, I've there's so many. Wouldn't mind seeing EC3 because that dude is like
Ooh.
transformed himself drastically, like in the time that he spent away. Like it's scary.
I wonder what his new gimmick is going to be. I've been following his online stuff, and
I've been keeping tabs on it because I want to see myself. Where he's going. Don't get me wrong. Not only would the Revolt be a good tag team to bring in, but you could also bring in Gallows and Anderson to OTT. Imagine having them against, say, like Kings of the North or More Than Hype.
Oh, give me that, please. And can they be Chad Too Bad and Sex Ferguson when they do it? Yes. Yes. Money.
Things like that, it's brilliant. Just the idea alone is wow. Not all, and imagine thinking it for up and comers. All right, we know the Kings of the North have been around for a long time, but they're still relatively unknown worldwide. So if you were to put them against, say, Bullet Club, Gals,
Bullet Club versus the fucking Kings of the North, yeah.
That elevates them immediately. And same with More Than Hype. So regardless, there's matches that potentially could make our stars bigger than shine a light on them, a bigger light on them, which is
give them the rub. Give them the rub.
Yeah, not in the bad kind of rub, the good rub.
Yeah, no, I say. Oh yeah, I know.
But
putting some shine on them, it's all right.
There's two potential matches there. Then if we're going full on Scrapper Mania kind of card, there's two matches there out of a potential 7 or 8 matches. You could get EC3 over, have him against David Starr, or you could have him against someone else, depending on how his gimmick is going. What way he decides to present it. So that will determine who he could be put against. But if you're obviously for scrapper cards, it's tough. I've always said that I never envy Joe Cabrera for how he books a show. Terms of, taking the time to think will these people work together? Will it be a good match? I do complain about how many people he books, but that's a different story. It's just I never envy like what he has to go through to get people, because it's always working out about the schedule and like this is the only date he can get this person, so that's why there's so many people
Mm-hmm.
on the card. But I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
you could put Scotty Davis against Daniel. Scotty Davis
You
against
can
Daniel. It,
like that guy has come on so far in the last few years. It has just been astonishing to watch. Um,
it's
I consider him our equivalent of Osprey at this point. He's going to be that good.
I could actually like thinking about it, like I could see easily Sky Davis going to the likes of a New Japan or the likes of maybe Ring of Honor. Don't know. That's where I
Yeah,
could see him doing really well. Whereas like with the likes of
yeah,
the likes of a more the hype, then like so talented. All three of them are so talented. You put them
mm-hmm.
in the likes of a Ring of Honor, like in the trios, or like even AEW. AEW have a
Yeah,
good sets of
yeah.
trios. So like, you put them there. So that's where I could see them being easily. Like they're that
Northern
good.
Hype versus Jurassic Express, just for the entertainment value alone, would be great.
Uh, but even without that, like you could have them against the Lucha Bros again. Like they
Mm-hmm.
Death Triangle, as it were. Because like
Oh,
that, the
yeah,
idea of that is so good. Because they've faced the Lucha Bros before, and
mm-hmm.
they're getting a chance to mix it up with all three guys. And
Yeah,
it's like that's a scary and insanely like good match that's gonna be. Like
yeah, and it would be visually stunning. It would be entertaining at the same time. It would tell a story. Yeah, it ticks all the boxes. It ticks all the boxes.
obviously like trying to think of like it's for everyone. Like it's for the women's. You could have like Rachel Evers come over. Rachel Evers
Yes,
kept an eye on,
yes,
incredibly talented. Like it's
yes.
scary talented. Like it actually is a shame like that WWE would let her go because
I know, I know. I mean, she's Lance Storm's prize student, and she's everything that you could fucking want. And I'm shocked that they let her go. I was genuinely shocked when I heard that one.
I mean
Um,
put her against the likes of like a Debbie Keitel or a Valkyrie. Like you
mhm.
could like there in itself like potentially like good matches. Dunno,
This, and you see, now we're getting into the mouth-watering part of going, see, there are positive sides to all of this.
well,
There are definitely positives to all of this.
yeah, because I'm basically using all the people that were released. Who would I put them
Yeah,
against? Whereas, like, I'm not even considering, like, all right, we won't be able to get them all on one show. Like,
yeah.
even for Scrapper Mania, we can only get, like, say 4 or 5 of them out of, like, the
Mm-hmm.
fucking, 30 odd or something like that were released.
I believe total count at the moment is up to 42 performers and a total of 108 staff.
So, like, it's, I mean, like, I'm not even, like, taking into account, like, oh, who currently on the indies would I love to see mix it with the Irish law?
Yeah,
And it's crazy
yeah.
because I'm like, holy crap, I'm really trying to think now who the fuck.
I'm not putting you on the spot, Foxy. I'm not putting you on the
No,
spot.
like
Let's just
this is fun.
let's
Like
just
this is
chill. Yeah.
for like ideas for it. Like, all right, great. If you're like dream card, like if you're gonna fucking just try and book a show, right? Women's match. If you're to put if you're gonna use either Katie Harvey or Session Martina, who would
Mm.
they go against?
I think I'd like to see Katie Harvey versus Evers first. And I don't know why that's popping into my head more. I love Martina. I absolutely adore Martina. But I think Katie and Katie and Evers would be a fucking barn burner of a match. Session Martina, I would put her up against absolutely every single one of them that has been released ever. living or dead. And I would have her going over all of them. Shout out to what she's doing in Ring of Honor right now. Oh, I love seeing her in Ring of Honor. And I hope she gets out of quarantine and back to Ring of Honor soon. But until then, keep up that goddamn sweet Twitter game. That sweet Twitter game of hers is fucking unreal right now. I actually stopped, like, one of my things in my house at the moment is I've turned my housemate D onto Session Mod and being like, look at this great human. Look at what she does on Twitter. Look how she destroys people. It's amazing. So yeah, big love for Martina.
Yeah, like I've made reference to the likes of Valkyrie and Debbie Keitel. Then you brought up Kay Harvey and Seshima. What about Amy Alonzi? Amy Alonzi has improved drastically over the last couple of years, and it's only going to get better. Like,
yeah,
who could you see her going against on the Indies? Because for someone, but like, I want to hear yours first.
Okay. Um, have you seen a German wrestler by the name of Lexa? Does a vampire gimmick.
I've heard of her. I haven't seen anything from her.
I've seen some of her stuff, and I'd really love to see her against her. Yeah, that'd be a good one. But that's me going super niche on what I like.
Yeah. Like, because as much as like wrestling is niche, and there's certain wrestlers that are extremely niche wrestlers, like they only appeal to a certain crowd. Like in regards to someone that would have a wider spread appeal, who would you go for?
God damn it, making me change my picks.
Gets you really thinking about it, doesn't it?
I'm not sure what her current situation is, but the alpha female Jazzy Gabbert.
Yes, that'd be a good choice. A very good choice.
Yeah. I don't know what company she's currently with or what's going on with her, but every single time I've seen her, I've been impressed.
Like, my choice was actually been because she's now currently on NWA Power is Melina. Melina would be a good choice, and also a return to OTT, so to speak.
Foxy, we've been selling this for Melina return for a while now, right? I'm going to tell a personal story, because you've brought her up, so I'm telling the story. So I'm at London Film and Comic Con last year, and I have the wonderful privilege of staying in the guest hotel. And in the guest hotel were several of the wrestlers. The booker, Tony, is a friend of mine, and he knew I was going to absolutely nerd out about all the wrestlers. I like being there. So I'll do the list, right? So we have Ted DiBiase, we have Al Snow, we have Rey Mysterio, we have Chavo Guerrero, we have Vicky Guerrero, we have the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, we have Virgil, and we have a couple of the ladies from the Divas era, and one of those ladies is Melina. And I get a message from Foxy, because I believe I'd sent you a photo of the back of Al Snow's head on the bus. And I go, guess who I'm sitting behind? He's like, who else is there? So I give you the list of who's there. He's like, would you get me a signed picture by Melina? I'm like, yes, I'll get you a signed picture by Melina. I'm like, will I drop in that you might want to book her too? And he's like, yes. So I went up and had a lovely conversation with Melina on Foxy's behalf. I got a wonderful signed photo for him. But yeah, Melina's lovely, and I'd love to see Melina back in OTT. That would be fucking amazing. And wasn't aware she's currently on NWA Power. I haven't seen her there. But in fairness, I've been cherry picking my matches out of NWA Power. So thanks for the heads up. Who's she been feuding with?
I'm not sure who she's been feuding with, but I know she's aligned herself with Thunder Rosa, as far as I remember. And what's the name of the girl? She's with Nick Aldis. Oi, What's her name?
Oh, Nick Alderson. Yeah.
It's the three of them.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I don't
That's a
know.
good pick.
I just get to see certain clips every now and then, so I'm not caught up on everything. But I mean, I think having Melina over would
Yeah.
be a good a nostalgia pop. B, the fact that she's actually in current like wrestling TV with NWA Power.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're putting her against a young up and coming talent in Amy Lonzi, and so what? But also, like, it's a nostalgia in the sense that she's probably watched her on TV growing up. So therefore, like, it's the same when Katie Harvey faced her. It's that nostalgia. It's like, I used to watch you wrestle, and I'm getting to wrestle you. You know, that kind of thing. You could tell an amazing story out of that. So, but that's what I find like fun about that idea. But I'm not sure. Like,
God damn.
yeah,
Mine
right.
cut out there, buddy.
Yeah. What was the last thing?
Yeah. Give it a second. With her being on NBA on NWA Power, it would be a good draw because she's currently on TV. Here's what I suggest: bottom left-hand corner, there's a little control that says "Start video," "Stop video." Stop your video. It will lower your bandwidth.
Yep. There we go. That helped.
What a picture, Foxy! What a picture!
I know. Went old school. The long hair. But yeah, like,
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
it's the only photo
Yeah.
on hands to put on the profile.
Give me a second. Give me a moment. I'm going to go and reset my router. It's telling me that my signal is bad. Give me 5 minutes. I'll hit restart and I'll come back to you. Okay?
Right. I'll pause this right now.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy.
Anyway, moving on. So we've done our little fantasy booking anyway, but like, so obviously, like, we could talk about many other things. Like, we've talked about Star Wars. We've talked about wrestling a lot.
Mm-hmm. I want to give a proper shout out to comic book retailer Forbidden Planet Dublin, who have started as of this week their return to post out service. So if you are in need of a comics fix, you can email Forbidden Planet Dublin, and they will literally post you out your comics or post you out anything that they have for sale in their store. So if you're feeling that need for something a little nerdy, maybe give Forbidden Planet a shout and they'll be able to help you with some stuff. They sent me some comics today that I'm looking forward to reading because I haven't gotten to read new comics since all this started. So that's something I'm looking forward to. What are you looking forward to, Foxy?
I'm looking forward to when I can actually get back to shows and somewhat of normality. But not only that, like, we had talked about something a while ago, and we were trying to get the wheels in motion. Obviously, because of what went on, we couldn't continue that.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on a secret project. Now, I'm not going to like divulge what it is, but I'm actually looking forward to when we can get around to doing that in the future.
You bastard! I'm terrible at keeping secrets, and now you drop this on me on the podcast. Okay. Yes, we are working on a secret project. I have teased it in the past, and Foxy has teased it in the past. And that secret project, I'll give you a hint because it's me and because it's Foxy. I'm just going to give a little hint, just a little one.
Okay.
It's probably going to be a comic, given that I make comics.
It's kind of a given at this point. It's like, well, he writes comics and he's an editor, so it makes sense. But yes,
but with that we are saying nothing else about it until we have more to tell. Other than we've talked to a few artists and they've been very cool. And when we can say more, we will say more.
Definitely. But that's what I'm actually mostly looking forward to. Being able to get the ball rolling on that. but that's
Yeah.
for in future time.
In the future time, before the COVID, after the COVID, that's like we should change to a new numbering system after this.
Yeah, then we're
Because
going
then it could
back
be
to the future.
ACBC, man. It'll be our new time thing. It'll be great.
BC before Corona. Then
Yeah, yeah. Get the
AC
Christ
Slater.
out.
No, but like, yeah, like that's what I'm looking forward to. Looking forward to getting back to normality and hopefully starting back with shows. Uh, I also just miss like seeing my friends. Like I miss seeing my friends at shows. I miss seeing my friends, whether it be at conventions or otherwise. So it's that's one of the major things that I'm missing.
Yeah. The isolation of all of this can be very hard. Like I have housemates, but I've gone through a phase where I lost my mom to COVID. So I had to go into isolation following her funeral. So I couldn't even see housemates or family or friends or anybody for like 2 weeks afterwards. And that was probably the hardest thing about all of this so far is that, even if you're in a grieving process, um, you have to be on your own. And yeah, like we're just hitting phase one of our reopening of the country today. And that allows us to go out a maximum of 5 kilometers from our house. But along with that addendum, it has a small little addendum, which I think is quite nice. And it is appropriate that we meet in groups of no more than 4 people
Mm.
and that those people maintain social distance. And even though those restrictions are still in place, it does allow for me personally to see some friends in the local area that I can go and see at a safe distance and just spend some time with.
Yeah,
And that will be real fucking good for my mental health right now because not being able to see people has been a really hard part of all of this. Um,
like
so yeah.
I was talking to a couple of people, and the fact that like everyone's in different situations. Like unfortunately, like some get this like myself. I'm with my family that I like, but
Mhm.
obviously we get a little stir crazy because we're seeing the same things in and out. But at the same time, people on the other side of it that who are living alone and they have to go through all this. And like with yourself, going through basically going through the rigor,
Yeah.
like the bullshit of everything, uh, and you have to face it alone. Unfortunately,
Yeah, well, there are good services out there. Like, I'm not ashamed to say that I've engaged in both solo and group therapy over Zoom because I currently attend a psychotherapist on a weekly basis to help me maintain my bipolar. So to have a therapy system in place that I'm able to do from home, even though it's over a screen, even though it's like how we're talking now, has been very good for helping during that time of grieving. Having friends that I can talk to, at stupid hours because I'm awake at stupid o'clock because time has no meaning anymore,
yeah,
um, is very important right now. And being able to have connections with people on, a friend level, on a personal level, it can be very difficult in when you can't see them or when you can't go and see them or spend time with them. Um, so to like one of the things I'm coming out of this with is a real value for those relationships and friendships that you know I haven't been able to see personally face to face during this time. And I'll probably be a mess coming out of this as well because there's a certain amount of the grieving process gets paused because you're on your own. You suffered a loss. You can accept that loss and you can deal with that loss. But in the very Irish tradition, um, we make death a very social occasion normally.
yeah,
And, there's always a big send off for the person, as we call it. And my mom had a huge family, extended family, 13 brothers and sisters, all with kids and kids of their own and grandkids of their own. And the extended family really felt that not being able to come together part of it. And I look forward to doing something with with the extended family to honor my mom's memory after all of this has passed. But there is a very big element to it of, like I've dealt with death before. Everybody in their life at some point or another is going to deal with death. And my previous experiences with death in some ways were very social, as in, there would be a big funeral, there would be a big after service, everybody would gather and tell stories about the person, or and we haven't been able to have any of that because during this, the restrictions that are in place meant that we could only have 4 people at the funeral. The funeral had to be held at the gravesite, and we could not actually physically touch my mom's coffin. So there was a very strange disconnect from everything that was going on, because all of the normal ways of grieving, the simple normal ways of grieving, such as carrying a person's coffin or having a gathering in their memory, all of that is out the window, and you literally have to go home and sit by yourself, because given that situation, they believe funerals right now are one of the key things that can cause spreading of it. So we had to take extra precautions during the funeral, and we had to take extra precautions afterwards, where we essentially went into isolation, each of my family members, me, my brother, my sister, and my niece, for 14 days afterwards. So that's a really big ask of anyone right now going through this. And I can tell you that those 2 weeks kind of passed in a bit of a blur for me. And I was very thankful to have friends around that I could talk to. As in, I have housemates, but I could literally talk to them through walls. But, having friends I could talk to, having family I can talk to over Zoom, having access to a therapist over Zoom, and not being closed to doing that as a way of grieving right now has been very important for me personally for getting through this isolation thing. Like I said earlier, I'm a writer, a comics writer who can essentially work from home 90% of the time. Working from home is not a problem for me. But what became a problem for me during all this was realizing that I now had to grieve at home alone. And that's when that place that I would normally consider comfortable and safe became a little bit problematic for me, because suddenly I was feeling the cabin fever of the whole thing. But at the same time, I've been very strongly advocating to keep to the guidelines that are being put out there. And I personally have been sharing, facts rather than fictions, or rather than maybes, or rather than assumptions, because right now facts are what's going to help people. And the fact is, we're now at a stage where we can go and see people, but we have to be controlled about it. Doesn't mean this thing's all over. Doesn't mean that more people aren't going to die. And I really personally feel that I don't want to cause anyone else the kind of pain that I've gone through in the last few weeks by spreading this, or possibly infecting somebody else,
or inadvertently spreading it. For that
matter. Exactly. That's a guilt I don't want right now, and that's like, I don't want to feel that I could be responsible for doing that to someone else. So for me personally, I might be a bit more stringent with these guidelines and these rules, as in, like, at the moment, simple things like, if post comes in, leave it there for a day. The virus can't live on packages for more than 24 hours. So if you get a package into your house, leave it for 24 hours. If you need to bring things in from a supermarket, disinfect them afterwards. Have a bottle of spray there and spray stuff down, because it's not just protecting you, it's protecting other people around you. And if I can do anything to help in that respect, maybe it's because I have suffered a loss, and maybe it's because that's just the way I'm thinking right now. It's not a what's the best way to put this? It's not that I lost someone, it's that I don't want anybody else to lose someone,
Yeah.
you know?
It,
And
it's a tough thing to like. I couldn't imagine how hard it is to go through that. I really couldn't because of like to be able to like have to sit at home and basically grieve by yourself for the loss of someone that you're very close with, like in terms of
yeah,
your mother, and not even have that interaction, the badly needed interaction with a family member, like a close family member,
yeah,
like your brother or your sister, to kind of cope with it and deal with it together.
there's no denying, man.
Like it just it I can't imagine how it is,
Yeah,
and I hope that I don't have to go through that like for a long period of time. But like, then it's but what you have been putting out on social media, then I've seen it, and it's then you're coming from. I'm one of the unfortunate then like results of it. Then in the sense that like my mother caught this horrible virus, and here's what you have to deal with when someone catches it. You're
yeah.
given first-hand information on what this
What it's
unfortunately
like,
do.
and that's just where my brain went to, man. Maybe that was my way of dealing with it during it. Was
Was to try and
just
help someone else and just like, look, here's what I'm going through. Don't please like follow the guidelines. Do this. Don't. I don't want anyone
yeah,
to go through what I'm going through.
yeah. It very much it comes from that place, but it's very much enforced by the you know this thing. It's unprecedented in that we are living at a time where we are dealing with something that affects absolutely everybody,
Mm.
and it's going to tangentially affect absolutely, like, there's nobody on this planet right now that hasn't heard of this. That's like, that hasn't had to deal with it in some way or another. And if I can help by giving my experience out there and just saying that this is what happens and what I've been through in this thing, and if that helps one other person get through what they're going through, then I'm glad I shared it. It's not easy to feel like you're on your own, and sometimes by sharing that stuff you feel less alone. And that's something I've learned over a couple of years of therapy now. And I just want to it's weird, I come out of this thing and I just want to help. I just want people to be fucking nice to each other, follow the guidelines that they see, and have a little bit of respect for each other. And that's all it takes right now to really help this thing go away, is to just fill yourself up with facts and use the information correctly, or use it to the best of your ability to protect you and others at the same time. It's not about me. It's not about you personally. It's about all of us. And it's a great unifying fucking factor that has leveled the playing fields for a lot of people. This affects all of humanity. It doesn't affect, sorry, I'm getting off point now, but it's a big unifying factor in that it affects every single one of us. And if all we can do to help people is share our experiences of it, then, and it helps people, great. That's all I'm looking for right now. Like, I've done a couple of things on my own, to kind of help a couple of groups that are helping out during this time. Shout out to Ian McMorty's Ask for Mask groups, who is a cosplay group that was a charity group that is making PPE masks for frontliners, and was doing so off the back of a GoFundMe, where they would get cosplayers to dress up in their costume and simply take a picture of themselves with the hashtag Ask for Masks. That successfully ran for 2 months, and they were able to send out a couple of thousand masks. So for me, it's really become my way of getting through this has been trying to help other people in whatever way I can, be it my family, be it my friends, be it people that are close to me, and also trying to send a message out there that, this sucks. This absolutely fucking sucks.
Mm.
But if we all can just be a little bit nicer to each other and a little bit more considerate of each other's space and respect, then we can get fucking through this. And you know what? That it might bring about like, I know I'm personally feeling a great amount of value for little things that I was taking for granted, that aren't available to me right now, like being able to see friends, being able to hug friends, being able to just express myself emotionally with people.
Mm.
Um, and I'm looking forward to that coming back. And I look forward to coming back in phases, because right now I need a slowly rejoin the world situation, because I think we're all going to be a little bit on edge if things were to just open up right now and all one go. It would
All
be
chaos.
far more
All
chaotic
chaos.
than this slow, gradual. Every couple of weeks we open up a little bit more. Every couple of weeks we open up a little bit more. We have done great work, but there is still more work to do. So
Yeah.
I just hope we do it.
As long as everyone does their part, then we should be heading back to normal a lot sooner rather than a lot later. Then
Yeah,
and yeah, like for anyone listening, then it sucks. Like everyone knows what everyone knows what the situation is. It sucks. We're forced to stay in. Some more than others. Then some have to go through a lot of things that we'd never wish on a worst enemy, but then that's unfortunately the reality we're in. Now, like as Kieran said, just treat if people were to treat each other with a little bit more respect and keep your distance, follow the guidelines. We'll definitely be able to get back to somewhat of normality sooner than later. Uh, it like if you're listening to this and you feel like all right, I want to help, look up the different websites, look at the guidelines, look if you want to donate to a charitable cause, go find them online, help frontline workers, be as safe as possible, because if frontline
absolutely.
workers aren't around, then unfortunately the whole country crashes completely. We wouldn't know what to do with ourselves, and we'd descend into chaos. So definitely help
And right now,
to help you.
yeah, because right now, like, having talked to a whole lot of frontline workers in care homes and in hospitals that are friends of mine right now, it is not an easy job that they are doing, and it is as heartbreaking as it is for us in our way of being in isolation. It's as heartbreaking for them to have to see this on the front lines every day. And yeah, just a big respect for everybody in the front lines right now, in every sense of the word. And I just hope we all get through this as much as I hope we get through this with as few deaths as humanly possible.
Yeah, like
Whew.
I know, obviously, this is kind of it's a it very heavy and somewhat dark subject to be talking about, but unfortunately, if it's not talked about, then the people are in blissful ignorance about it, and it's needed. I do like to keep everything nice and comfortable and a bit lighthearted, but this was kind of needed for not only for the show but for people that do listen to the show to hear, and
Yeah.
hopefully
And
your story will help others. So
well, if anybody is in this situation and wants some advice on where to go to get help, feel free to message me, feel free to contact me or reach out to me. I'm easily contactable on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm Ciaran Marcantonio everywhere. And if you're having trouble during this time and maybe you want to reach out and get some counseling, I could probably recommend a few places to you. If you're just in need of a bit of advice, if you're going through this yourself, I'm always open. My DMs are open. for this kind of talk. I'm all for mental health, and I'm all for supporting people during this really fucking horrible virus. So yeah, feel free if you want some first-hand experience.
And like obviously, like on that note, like the like apart from that, like it's yeah. If the as we come to a close, like the yeah, just treat each other with a bit more respect. Follow the guidelines. Be safe. Like and it look. I yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words. Like anyone that's listening to the show, if you like the show, please like, share, comment, interact. It's don't know if tell us what you like, what you don't like, but if please get in touch with the proper people. If you want to get in touch with Ciaran, he's kindly given his social media platforms. So please, you can DM him if you need any help. But until then, like hopefully we'll catch you in the next one. I'd like to thank Ciaran first and foremost for coming on and talking about it. It was really
No worries, dude.
yeah. But like
you're a friend. I consider you a close friend, and I'm happy to talk to you about this kind of stuff and kind of give my experience and also shoot the shit. For a lighter ending, I'm going to pick my favorite comedy show that has gotten me through this goddamn thing so much. Please watch What We Do in the Shadows. It is the best show about vampires ever made. It's hilarious.
there you go. And on that note, we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.